Hey guys. All right, so the video down below is from Mark Dice, and this morning he was talking about AOC and how she's pushing the anti-white agenda, and her whole premise is that white people are the number one polluters in the world. So objectively, this is false. I mean, you look at the demographics of both China and India. Um, Indians, obviously, in India and China, Chinese and China, respectively, they're the number one polluters, and it's not because of who they are as people in terms of race. It's just because they have so many people over there in those countries. So, especially in China, I believe it's over 1 billion people at this point. Um, so, this is kind of part of the whole Agenda 21 playbook, is to demonize those who you want to get off the land. Um, it works differently in China and India in terms of getting them off the land. They just expect them to resort to cannibalism one day, which is actually something that you're already seeing in China. But here in the United States, one of the strongest demographics is the white demographic, and you look at the I just saw somebody I knew. That's pretty cool. But you look at what the white man, cliched as that is, what they've brought to Western society, and the people that founded our country, they were white people, white men, and in order to destroy this country, they need to not only demonize the demographic, but to eradicate it altogether, which is what they're doing with mass migration, inspired by the Kalergi Plan. The Kalergi Plan is, if you guys know this, if you don't know this, it was this young punk from Austria who was a mixed race baby. I believe he was Austrian and Swedish, and he was very upset, I guess, with how his parents were an interracial couple. So I guess he said, "Okay, I'm going to take my anger out on the world and force them to have interracial babies." But I think one of the byproducts of that was also destroying the culture of all these countries in which mass migration has affected. And another interesting thing too, I heard about this, but you look at suicide rates amongst certain youth, and this is something that I got from my friend Decipher. Big shout out to him. But he was saying how the number one demographic in terms of suicide rates among children were mixed race. Now, I don't know why that is. I guess the whole premise is that, well, these kids never have an easy time finding which group that they fit into, so they end up feeling isolated and end up committing suicide, I suppose. You know, for me personally, I'm mixed race technically. I have Greek and German on my mom's side, and Jewish, Sephardic more specifically, and Italian on my dad's side. And it's not really something that I'm lamenting, but I did always look different from the other kids in school, so to speak. So maybe that's what they're going through. Maybe that's the reason why they're being led to higher suicide rates. I'm not sure. But anyways, going back to the title video, because I'm the title topic, I'm kind of getting a little off topic here. You look at what AOC said the other day about whites being the number one polluter in the South, and then that having an adverse effect on the black communities down the South. And we've heard this a lot before. I mean, we've heard people go on to Tucker's show and say, "Oh, weather is racist. Climate change is racist," and all this bullshit. And, you know, it's just there to push the anti-white agenda. And it's not only just anti-white, but it's also anti-black and anti-POC as well, because what they're doing is they're scaring all of these young people, both white and black, into thinking that, number one, in the context of both, that the environment is going to the ecosystems around the world are going to completely collapse, and we actually have a hand in that. I mean, we actually, we can help prevent this by not using plastic straws and not using plastic bags, or drinking out of plastic water bottles, or not eating hamburgers and all this bullshit. So it's what psychologists have begun to call eco anxiety, I believe. So both white and black children are feeling the fears of this. They're starting to become very fearful children, which is very sad. But let's take a look at either side. I mean, the white kids, they're thinking that, well, I'm a polluter, and that's going to lead them to be depressed and to feel guilty about just their own skin color. Same goes with the black kids. I mean, they're going to be raised thinking, well, I'm an oppressed individual, thus I should assume the role of the victim. This does not that type of mindset does not create very strong children on either side. So it's very sad what we see here. And I used to think that AOC is like she's comic relief. She's the court jester of the Democrats. But I'm really starting to think that the deeper and longer that she's been in politics, the more evil she seems to be. I mean, you look at the people behind her. Cenk Uygur, the guy who's openly used the N-word and openly endorsed bestiality. And, you have Jimmy Dore shilling for him, which is a video for a whole nother day, but it's something that I definitely want to cover. And you have George Soros behind her. As we've all seen, it's been publicly stated that George Soros has donated to the Young Turks, and that is obviously Cenk Uygur's media outlet. So AOC, I mean, she's really become a key member of the swamp. I mean, there's a lot of people that seem to think that she's like a rebel of some type, but she really isn't. I mean, she is basically just saying everything that the Democratic Party is thinking about. They're probably too afraid to say because they know that they're going to lose the centrist aspect of their base, and that's already happening through the impeachment process. 90% of the country, like I said last night, is probably going to vote for Trump. And when I say 90%, I mean the eligible voters, not the illegals, not the dead people, not the dogs and cats, not the cows and chickens, but the American citizens. And of course, the popular vote won't reflect that because they're going to have to commit such a large act of voter fraud in order to make it look like the country doesn't want Trump, which they really do. I mean, just look at the alternative, and that's usually all it takes. I mean, they just take a look at the alternative to Trump, and they're like, "Well, fuck that." I don't really want to go for that. So, something to think about there. Anyways, but just in summary, I mean, AOC, she's continuing to push this Agenda 21 propaganda when it comes to climate change. Even people like David Icke have kind of jumped on her back and said, she's talking about climate change as if it's a man-made thing. By the consumer. It is not done by the consumer. It's done by programs like HARP and by other people. And don't even forget the natural aspects of climate change with cosmic rays and everything, and the fact that we're going into a mini ice age. Forget about that. Well, that's what they're trying to say. They're trying to say, forget about that. They're trying to put it all on the consumer. That's straight out of the Agenda 21 manifesto, as is mass migration. And of course, AOC is going to continue to push anti-white rhetoric because that's what they want to achieve. They want to get rid of the white man because white man bad, orange man bad. And as we're seeing in Virginia, guns are bad, okay? All right, that's all I got, guys. Thank you so much for watching. God bless. I'll see you later.